Okay, first let's just do a real quick how I tin the wires. Now a lot of people will just take their soldering iron and just get a dab of solder on it and then come through and touch the wire. That may work in some cases, but I'm using green and red magnet wire, and sometimes the green burns. So what I'll do is I'll come in here and put just a tad of flux on it, come back, and I'll just put that tip that's been in the flux for about 5 seconds. And you got a perfectly tinned lead. Let's do that with the other one here. What happens if you don't get if you burn that enamel off, but it may leave some corrosion and you'll never get that solder to stick. It happened to me for a long time before I realized that. So again, here's my other wire, and we'll just put a little bit on there. We'll go back, grab some more solder, stick it on there. We're done. I know that's hard to see, but that's all you need. In fact, if you have too much that's been tinned, you're going to want to come back and cut some off, because you just need a very, very small piece of wire that's exposed because the pads are so small. Okay, I know this might be a little hard to see here, but there's my LED. You'll notice the little green paint is wider at one end than the other. The widest end is the cathode, which will be the negative side, and the smaller end on the right is going to be the anode, which is the plus side. Again, if you hook them up backwards, with a normal power supply, it's not going to hurt anything. It just won't light. But the reason I want to be sure on this is because I use two colors of magnet wire, red and green. The reason being is I might wire 10 or 12 of these up at once just to have them. And being able to grab one out of the box and already know which the polarity is and have the wires ready to go just saves a lot of time. So the first thing I like to do, and I learned this the hard way, is put a little flux right on the pads. And we're going to do that. That's it. And that just makes the solder bond so much quicker. You don't want to stay there too long, you're going to burn the pads. And if you don't get a good connection, you're going to pull this off the double-sided tape and the wire's going to pop out. So let's go. We're going to get just a little bit of solder on our gun. We're going to be on top of the pad, touch, and that's it. I mean, just barely touch, and we got a good solid connection. Again, if you sit there too long, you're going to burn the pad. And you're also going to get corrosion again, and that's what the flux helps with. It doesn't have a chance to corrode. You're going to have a good solid fitting. Now we're going to come back, and we're going to do the other side. And I'm going to try to get in here again. You see what I'm doing without blocking everything. There's my wire. It's on the tab. Bingo. Done. And that's it. Turn it on, we have light. So again, the flux, in my case, I've just found it that much better to knock down any corrosion, to get a good strong solder connection quickly. You don't want to overheat the pad, you'll ruin the LED. If there's any corrosion, which is why I also use the flux on the wires when I burn off the enamel, is to get a nice, clean, non-corrosive piece of wire to tap onto. When I first started doing these, and I saw some other videos online, some of the guys weren't using flux, and I would try to get the wire on there and it might stay and pop off, and I just thought, well, maybe it is worth buying them. But I saw another guy and he used a little bit of flux on the pads, and I took that one step further and used it on the wires. So that's how easy it is. Of course, you can buy your LEDs pre-wired, not a problem, that's your decision. But if you have the few basic tools you need, you can get the LEDs very, very inexpensively through suppliers or eBay or whatever. The last package I believe I got was 100 of these guys for $9.95 and free shipping. So at that price, you know, if you ruin a couple while you're experimenting, it's not the end of the world. And again, you can use magnet wire the same color, and that's available at some resources that I listed in the article. Or in my case, again, I just like to use the two colors because I can make these up ahead of time, and it'll just save a lot of frustration on the other side. Okay, we flipped it upside down. It's soldered. It works. There's your on and off. These will fit in most O-scale classification lights, so there's just a myriad of uses for this. And again, if you understand the first article in the January-February version of the O-scale resource as far as computing Ohm's law and knowing your input voltage and knowing how to pick out the proper resistor, you can use these things in just all kinds of uses. And the chances of them burning out, if you are careful, are pretty slim. Okay, we've turned this back over upside down, and you can see that I now have run the wires parallel down the side. Now the reason for this is some of the castings, the holes in there may be so small that the LED won't go in side to side. So by bending the wires back on themselves, you'll be able to slide that in sideways. And that's one more important reason why when I tin the magnet wire, you want just a very, very small tip of that magnet wire tinned without the insulation. Because if you have too much and you wrap it over like I've done here, that wire there, if it's tinned too far, may come back and hit that pad and short out. That's not happening here. Now the other thing I like to do, and this is just me, depending on the application, is I'll come back and I will put a dab of ACC on there. I use the Zappa Gap medium gap. It's a little thicker, and just by doing that I'm going to make sure those wires are not going to come off. Now I do trust my soldering, but every once in a while you pull a little too hard and it pops off. This way at least I found that won't happen unless you really tug on it or pull the wires apart. But it also helps you keep the two end wires hooked together as you slide it through some kind of a fixture or casting. One other thing we can do with these LEDs for indoor lighting, because they are so directional, is to help disperse the light. Now what I have here is a 6mm bead. I think these came from Hobby Lobby. I also have 4mm beads. But by using these you can create a light fixture or a chandelier if you want to get fancy. But all we're going to do is just stick this in here, and you can see how all of a sudden we're going to get some dispersion of the light. And that's great for buildings. And to hold that in there, and I'm not going to be able to do it, though it's going to stay there. What I'll use sometimes is canopy glue, the Formula 560 canopy glue. You can get that at the hobby store or even stores that cater to flying models. It dries clear. You can take a Q-tip and put it in the end of that hole to lock the wires in place. And then you can take that little fixture and you can hang it on the wall, hang it from the ceiling. If you want to run it through a little piece of conduit, you can do that also. Otherwise, just braid the wires and let it hang. Okay, here's our bulb again, and we'll turn them off. What some people like to do is take the Tamiya clear colors, and they'll color the bulb. Now, if you're looking for maybe an orangier type light than these are putting out, we can just dab that with the color, and bingo, we have yellow. In this case, it was actually a clear orange, but it gives you a little warmer color. I've used this successfully a lot of times. Tamiya makes a bunch of these colors, and what did it for me was I had ordered bright LEDs, bright white by mistake one time, and I really wanted the warm white. Well, I could either toss them or use this paint to knock them down, and the paint works really well. So that's just one more tip. If you buy an LED, you're not happy with the color, you want to make it a little warmer, or you want to do some, put these little LEDs in signals. Now you can buy red and green and all those, but you probably don't need that many of them. So stick with the white, color your own if you're going to make your own signals or switch stands or what have you.